Unwittingly.
Well, really, you can. I mean, and actually, zoom out a little bit again to natural religion. This is another error that, was debated in antiquity and still comes up in modernity, which is the notion that, these pagan natural religions, they just have nothing of value. What has Athens to do with Jerusalem? That sort of thing. And, but that's not really true because, natural religion does have something to recommend it. And I think Pope Francis got in trouble for recognizing that in all sorts of traditions, there is often a kernel of truth. There is at least some truth in it. In paganism, there's a kernel of truth. You think of C.S. Lewis, Barfield, and those guys loved the myths because it tells us something about our human nature. And the First Vatican Council tells us that the existence of God can be known with certainty from human reason, looking at the created world. There's more to it. You got to keep going. That God also reveals himself. But
that you can be certain God exists just by looking at his creation?
Yes. Using your reason.
That's the truest thing ever.
Yes.
Right.
But in modernity,
science gets you to God in the end because there's no...
I think so. You think so. Thomas Aquinas thinks so. But a lot of people in the modern world, they say, oh no, religion is just kind of a private matter of judgment.
Well, they're children. They've never thought about it. I mean, that's...
And think about, there was a new doctor of the church just named, just within the last few weeks. That would be John Henry Newman, greatest theologian in the English language. He was made a doctor of the church. And Newman's entire life was spent inveighing against liberalism in religion. This kind of wishy-washy sense.
Who is Newman?
Newman is great. He was a Protestant and very anti-Catholic. And then he became a Catholic, and then he became a cardinal, and then he became a saint. And
he was American?
British. He was British. I don't think we have any American doctors of the church yet. I'm working on it, but unfortunately, I have like a fifth grader's understanding of theology, so I don't think I'm going to...
Yeah, I don't even have that. But I certainly, I believe... But in a childlike way.
Yes.
But so Newman was a British Catholic theologian.
Yes. And he became Catholic. And one of his conclusions, and it's something that we're coming to grips with today, is we can know things. We can actually know things. That this modern idea that religion is just a matter of private judgment, and so you're a Shinto and I'm a Methodist, and it's like, whatever, man, who knows? You just do you and it's all good. And he says, no, religion is a public thing. It's a scientific thing. We can know something about it. He wrote a great book. You look at the crises of the universities today, there's a remedy to it, which is a book that he wrote called The Idea of a University. And in this book, he says, it's so crazy. We have these institutions that purport to universal knowledge. And increasingly, they won't even acknowledge God. But just on its face, even if you're like the most hardcore atheist you can imagine, how can you even pretend to universal knowledge while denying God, the source and summit of all knowledge? What are we talking about then? We're talking about just like chemistry problems?
Right.
That's so silly.
We're talking about data.
We're talking about
just
data.
An accumulation of numbers.
And what they say is, no. Because we live in this world after the crack up of Christendom, where everyone has their own private ideas, there's just no way of knowing anything for certain. So we're just going to settle on certain economic matters. We're all going to try to get rich. We're all going to try to live in relative peace. And we're going to leave that heady stuff. You do that on Sunday morning. And that's obviously impossible. Do you remember 20 years ago, there was this phrase?
Oh, it hasn't worked?
Look around. Well, actually, looking around here, it's okay. But if you look in the city, it's not so great. There was this idea that you can't legislate morality. Do you remember that?
I remember the idea. It was the operating thesis of the United States of America.
And yet, not one person ever practically believed it.
Of course not.
You can't pass a law about speeding. You can't pass a law about jaywalking without recourse to morality.
Of course.
And when you come to that conclusion about practical morality, which is ultimately derived from your understanding of religion, you are going to impose a moral view on someone. Maybe someone else is very pro jaywalking. Maybe someone else deeply feels in their sincere religious beliefs that they need to jaywalk.
All rules are based on a moral code.
Yes, and they're exclusive. You can't violate the law of non-contradiction. Either you're going to have a law against jaywalking or you're not. Either you're going to have a law against murdering babies or you're not. And you're going to impose that on people. That's what government is.
Well, as soon as people started saying you can't legislate morality, they started giving everybody, very much including me, these moralizing lectures. the country got more rigid and moralistic. It's why you were described as disgusting for noting that Greta Thunberg is unwell when it's obvious.
Her mother wrote a book about it.
And exactly. And sad, and she's worthy of compassion. But what happened to you is a result of this like epidemic of shallow but highly aggressive moralizing that took the place of something that we had before.
Yes. And that's why I think, okay, now we're going to get on our puritanical high horses about pronouns or whatever, like where you must put rainbow flags, which is in front of every doorstep everywhere in the country. We're going to get on our high horse about that, but we're going to shrug our shoulders when it comes to murdering babies, when it comes to the meaning of marriage, when it comes to whether a people can have borders in a nation.
Right.
With that, we can't know about that. But we can know about some ridiculous Gnostic heresy about pronouns and identity or whatever. It's totally incoherent. And so what you're seeing, and this to me...
Well, they just replaced Christianity with a much less forgiving religion.
Yes.
A much harsher, crueler, less compassionate religion.
And false religion.
Well, of course, definitely false. But in its effects, you could tell it was bad because it didn't elevate people or forgive people. It wasn't kind to people. It was cruel and unyielding and vicious.
Yes.
And I mean, all these people got destroyed, literally driven to suicide.
If you don't like the God who loves you, just wait till you meet all the other gods.
Yes.
Because everyone's got to worship something. Bob Dylan was right about that.
So how did you go? So you said that you were an atheist when you were at Yale, I guess?
When I was 13. I was confirmed at 13.
In the Catholic Church?
In the Catholic Church. And before my confirmation, I told my mother, I said, I don't believe it. Christopher Hitchens, he's so smart, and Richard Dawkins, and I'm really taken. I'm such a...
You thought Richard Dawkins was smart?
Listen, I was 13. Okay, come on.
Fair.
Come on.
Okay.
And actually, the new atheism really appealed to punk 13-year-olds who thought they were smarter than they are. That is the ideal audience for the new atheism.
Really?
I think so. And I told her, I said, I don't want to be confirmed. My mother, she's you're going through a phase. Kid, you're going through a phase.
Wise woman.
She goes, receive the sacrament. She wasn't even like super duper religious, but she said, receive the sacrament. You're going to regret it if you don't, and you're going to come to your senses in a few years. She was totally right. So I did that. I was away from the church, would have called myself an atheist or at least an agnostic for 10 years.
Can I just ask, what did you think was cool about, Hitchens was, I knew him well, it was,
very clever.
Yeah, lots of good things about Hitchens, but his life was so sad that he was not really an advertisement for atheism, I didn't think.
Yes.
But what did you think was cool about that whole thing?
Well, I thought religion was for stupid people.
Yeah.
I thought religion was for stupid people. And I, of course, didn't know anything and hadn't read anything. And my brain was...
You hadn't lived either.
Hadn't lived. But I was quite wrong, but I was never in doubt. And so I...
Been there.
Yes. I said, look, I don't see God. Bad things happen to good people. And, science has microscopes. And anyway, and getting back to the point on the reforms of the church and everything changing, it was kind of weak liturgically. There were all these sappy, effeminate hymns that were about eagle's wings and stuff they're not really appealing to a young boy and all this nonsense.
The eagle's wings got you, huh?
God, it was such, it wasn't even cool in the 70s when those.
No, I know. Oh, I was there.
Yeah. And so I said, well, look, it's just so obvious. Social proof. All the smart people are atheists. And then I get to college and everyone's an atheist. And many people are much smarter than me at college. But I did notice the smartest people believed in God.
Really?
Yes.
At Yale?
Yes. There weren't a ton of Muslims, though there were a couple, but across the board, the Muslims, the Jews, the Protestants, the Catholics were smarter. They seemed smarter. Maybe their IQs weren't even higher, but they just seemed more with it. They made better arguments than some stupid spaghetti monster nonsense from Christopher Hitchens. And I said, And then I was presented with an argument for the existence of God.
What an interesting observation.
And there weren't even that many of them there, but you kind of say, oh, wow, it's a little bit the wheat from the chaff,
They'd have to be the braver section of the population too.
This is one of the arguments to go to a liberal college is even just in your own politics. If you can make it through and not be swept along the tide of liberalism, and you make it through to the end, you will have heard every argument. You will have heard every refutation of everything you believe. You will either give up some of your beliefs, maybe some you should, or you will become much stronger in your beliefs, which is what happened to me. I left Yale much more right-wing than I went in, without question. And I'm not the only one. So I was presented with an argument from a guy who's smarter than me. And he said, you think God doesn't exist? What about the ontological argument? And I won't be tedious with but the argument is basically, God's the maximally great being.